Tolerators. This is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie, the show where my guest and I chat about how the way we speak to women when they are younger affects the way they will interact with the world around them when they're older. All right, team, you know our wonderful friend and co-host of Still Comfy, Jules. Well, the gifts. Oh, I wrote this cute intro and I'm just going to fuck it up.
Oh, that's my fucking story of my life.
So, all right. Well, the gifts when it comes to Jules don't stop with her because she is the reason I have the pleasure of knowing today's guest, Carly Adams. She is the owner of Tidy Revival and helps her clients and students get organized at home through one-on-one work and in her course community, the Clutter-Free Home Process. Carly is also a tidy person who's never shamed me about how untidy the artist loft gets. And she's like, we've been there. Buy a bucket, but measure what you want to be in that bucket first. Carly is a self-proclaimed organizational nerd that loves to geek out on the topic regularly on the Tidy Revival podcast. Also, I will say that Carly, the thing I love the most about the Tidy Revival podcast and all of it in existence is that Carly takes all of the emotional baggage that comes with like being tidy or like having a cluttered home or like having bad habits that you learn from your family or your past or your anxiety. And she allows you the space to feel those things and then goes, and now we will have the tools to do it. It's like cleaning therapy.
Oh, thank you.
But today, she is going to talk to me about how women are sold a princess narrative and why it is a disservice to them in the long run. Welcome to Team Tolerator, Carly.
Oh my gosh, Natalie, thank you so much for having me because I know that I was doing a mini rant on this on Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, and you were so gracious as to DM me and say, hey girl, you want to talk about this for an hour?
Hey, do you want to actually, because you started it off with, I could talk about this for days, but I guess I won't. I go, but there are places that you could.
Said I sure the hell do want to talk about it. Thank you so much for having me.
You just come on over here where we talk about all of the ways that men teach women how to talk to other women, and then we'll just like bitch for an entire afternoon on a relaxing Sunday, which I believe is also is today Tidy Revival's 5th birthday, or was it yesterday?
It is. It's today.
Happy birthday!
Thank you. So it's Sunday today when we're recording, and Sunday is usually like my day that I don't work but first of all, this is fun. So this doesn't count as this is just an enjoyable way for me to chat with someone while I drink my coffee. And yeah, it's the Biz birthday. And so here we're doing fun stuff for that too, but that is not why I'm here today.
No, we're going to talk about, the reason, some context to the Tolerators, it was the Sex and the City episode where the two of you were really doing a really in-depth comparison of Charlotte being a woman of wealth and Samantha Jones being a woman of wealth, and how that like was so polarized in the show because of the ways that Samantha and Charlotte felt about the world and sexuality and women in general and money and all of that. And it's a great conversation.
Thank you.
You're
it
welcome.
was so much fun. And as you heard, I was obsessed with Sex in the City, especially in college. And it really, I think, kind of framed a lot of like what I thought it meant to be an adult before I was really old enough to form opinions about what I wanted it to mean for me to be an adult, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I remember watching Sex and the City all of the time once it had been syndicated, and like just watching the reruns and all of it and just thinking like, oh, again, I've talked about on the podcast before the lie that media teaches us about women friendships as you're an adult. And it's like one of you will be the steamy one and one of you will be the uppity one and one of you will always be yelling and then one of you will be the main character.
Yeah, the main character. That's really the thing to note. So then everyone's like, I'm the Carrie.
I'm Carrie. And I'm over here going, do you know how embarrassing it is to be like, I think I was Miranda And now that And Just Like That has come out, I'm like, do I still tell people that I've been a Miranda my entire life?
You know what? There's no shame in being a Miranda. She is the glue that holds that whole damn friendship together.
She is, and she's wilding out right now, and honestly, good for her.
I'm here for it.
It's a good for her. I'm okay with Miranda wilding out. I'm not okay with the person that she's choosing to wild out with.
I feel like this could end up being a whole separate conversation.
I know. I've already gotten us off a topic. Okay. So if
I
I
like it.
told you that this episode could just be me being silent and you getting to get on your soapbox and tell us exactly how you feel about this topic, where would you start?
Well, I'll tell you. I do have notes, but because I know we don't have like a ton of prepared questions, so I do have notes. But what it boils down to, and I didn't prepare a monologue, I'll be honest. I just have had this idea recently and felt very strongly that we, as the generation that we are, for me, I'm an elder millennial, and I feel like the next gen, down Gen Z, is also doing a good job of this too. Or I see them striving to be the change we want to see in the world, and I appreciate that. But I think that traditionally, girls have been sold this idea, and I know I was, and many people that I know were, that the thing that is most important for us to strive for in life is to find a romantic relationship, lock it down, happily ever after comes after that. And then that's just kind of the end of the story. And what I think is the biggest disservice with that scenario is that it teaches girls that the thing that is most important and the thing that is going to boost our self-worth the most is our relationship status. And what I see that leads to, just in the world around me, in deep conversations that I'm having with people, is that if that status is not achieved, people don't feel like their self-worth is there. And instead, I think that we really need to like focus and harness our energy in teaching young girls that the most important thing that they need to strive for is a healthy relationship with themselves, that they need to look for themselves as being their best friend, the person they can count on, the person that they need to boost up, having that self-love, and have that be the most important thing, your guiding light in life. And from there, once you have the love and support within yourself, you're more capable to have these healthy relationships with those around you. But most importantly, if those outside relationships aren't happening in maybe the way that you projected for the path of your life, that you're not going to then take this beating to your self-worth. It's not like a cause and effect situation. It's more like and this is an add-on into my life. But the thing that really drives me is this self-worth that comes from within, and this friendship that I have with myself as number one.
Yeah, men get, and I've talked about it before on the podcast, men get really hateful at me on TikTok, not on my own TikToks, but on comments that I'll leave on other people's TikToks. And it'll mostly be the same concept of, I don't need a man to be my foundation. I want him to be like my sunroom or like my like window seat in my house, like something nice that got to be.
That I love, I enjoy. It's a bright part in my day.
But should the sunroom flood, I still have like a living room and a bedroom and a bathroom that will also be utilized in my home.
100%. And one of the things that I wrote down in my notes that I should say quickly, and we talk, I mean quickly, like into the episode, so people aren't like, hey, lady, historical context. Yes, totally get that there's a historical context for all of this. And we only got to own property in, and I made sure to get these years right, 1848.
Yep.
We only got to vote in 1920. We only, and this one kills me because I didn't even know this until recently because no one fucking talks about it. Can I say that on the air?
Oh yeah, we curse all the time. Okay. We're dirty.
I love it. Dirty birdie. We could only start opening checking accounts for ourselves without a husband, without a father in the 60s. which is fucking crazy to me. But how could we have been expected before that to strive for anything else except to lock it down? Because that was going to be our means for survival. And all the fairy tales that we've been sold are really, when it boils down to it, it's like money gives you more options.
Yeah.
Which is what, I mean, that's what it is. That's why we want a Prince Charming. That's why we want this, this guy to come in and like, it's that princess complex. But I think that we needed that as a gender to survive and to help our family and to just, survive. So there's that.
And I think what I've come to understand is romanticizing that was also a form of manipulation, that the system that benefited from us not being able to vote or have checking accounts or own property and have to be married to men was one of their tools. Like, it was one of their tactics to be like, no, it's so great. You guys won't have to work or think or any of it. You'll just get to enjoy these babies we made you have.
I met someone once. I'm just going to not have more context than that. I met someone once. They were from the South, and this is like in the last 5 years. And they were like, oh, you should come to, my state in the South. You'd never work again. I was like, ew, I don't know what, what is that a compliment? I don't even know how to take that, but yeah, 100%. If we're focused on being saved and just be like waiting, making ourselves the most beautiful and the most on high heels and the most, if we're fixating on making sure our pores are small enough and that our cooking is good enough and that our hair is shiny enough, then maybe we're going to get chosen. And he's going to pick me over all the other people. I will be shiny and pretty enough for him to pick me, as long as I keep my mouth shut and I'm just really pleasant and smile while I'm walking, smile while I'm eating salad, smile all the time and never be disparaging or rude. As long as I do all of that, then maybe he will choose me and everything's going to be okay. And when we're concentrating on that, we're taking our eyes and in the process, pitting ourselves against each other.
Yes.
While we're concentrating on our pores and our tall shoes that make it so we can't run away when someone's trying to kill us and all of these other things, we're taking our eyes off of the fact that we don't fucking have equal rights.
No. Yeah. And then they act surprised when we're like, we would just like body autonomy and maybe like a say in what happens in our communities. And they're like, for why? I speak for you.
Need thank ye. You sit make baby now.
Where is my sandwich?
I said martini now. Thanks.
And what ended up happening in my 20s when I would be entering into relationships was I still have this tendency to just get really passive where I'm like, it's okay. I can go with the flow. What did you say to me? I guess that's fine. And then when the relationship starts going south, I get so resentful because I'm like, what the fuck do you have a problem with? I did everything right. I was pleasant. I giggled. My makeup was always on point. People knew that I was hot when you were going out with me. Like, what the fuck could you be complaining about?
The did everything right is something I think that we can all relate to. And it's so hard. It's so hard. I'm really happy that we're talking about this.
I am too. Something that I found that I connected with this topic on Facebook literally last night while I was doom scrolling while my Wi-Fi was out and I couldn't watch The Mole.
Come on.
Was this entire thread about the good girl rhetoric that we are also sold that gets us into these positions where it's like from a very early age by teachers and adults and doctors and parents and our loved ones and everything, you get told that like in order to be a good girl who will end up desirable, you have to be quaint and quiet and polite and smiling. And what it ends up doing is skewing the way that we view our boundaries, because it's like, oh, well, why would I ever tell you that it's not great for you to tell your guy pals that while I'm really great in bed, I'm annoying as fuck. So it's just like with one hand and another that you have to deal with me. Like, I'll just giggle at that because I have nothing else to say.
Yeah, the good girl thing, I I'm going to I really, really internalized that in my own life. And I grew up really like in a religious, like conservative household. And I think there are a lot of expectations that go along with that. But even if you don't grow up in a religious conservative household, I think that we can all just relate to the good girl thing. Even in the last year or so, I've made a really a really concerted effort to come out of my shell more
Mm-hmm.
publicly,
Yeah.
um, and just be myself in my own personality. But and I'm meaning this like from a business sense, because I'll tell you, I really internalized like on the good girl front, like what that means to also be a business owner and show up in the world in work. And I internalize that as like, nobody must know that I have tattoos, and I must never curse, and I must not try and be too funny because some people might get turned off. And maybe I shouldn't talk about some of the things I believe in because it might turn people away. And in the last, I guess it's been a couple years and it's just kind of evolving from there, but it's like, you know what? I'm just going to be more me. And I
Yeah.
think the people who resonate with that will stay, and the people who don't will not. And that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
fine.
I think also the self-deprecating way that we'll talk about our projects or what's going on in the world or whatever, where it's like people ask me all the time, "Well, what do you do?" And I'm just like, "Oh, I just like run this little show. It's a little funny one. It's called To All the Men I've Tolerated Before, and we just laugh about my exes because they were so silly, but like it's not a big deal or anything." And that's how I ran it the entire year. And then I'm like, well, how are you ever going to get views if you're just like, oh, I just do this thing. It's over here.
Someone said once, ironically, I remember specifically, it was Christy Wright, who is part of the Dave Ramsey Network. So that's also a very conservative outlet. But anyway, I remember she said once, she was like, we got to stop using the word little when we're
Hmm.
describing anything we do. When people are like, how's your little business? Say, actually, it's not so little.
Yeah.
And when we're describing ourselves and what we do, leave that little word out. Another trigger word that I'm trying to leave out is just. I'm just going to send this. I just have this thing. I'm just doing this little, leave them out. We're not
Hmm.
just doing anything. We're doing it. And it's not little. We're doing the damn thing. And it all matters, no matter the size of our audience, how many downloads we have, how many clients we have, whatever it is, we're doing the damn thing and it matters.
One of the ways that I've also had to like rethink the way that we were raised and kind of start to deprogram it is that like it's not like our parents were trying to hurt us or set us for success or whatever. I think in the like in at the very base level of what my parents have said to me about this topic of being single and living on my own and experimenting with who I'll date and whatever, at the end of the day their question is, well, is Natalie going to even be safe or able to take care of herself or whatever? And then when I start to look through things that they would say to me when I was little through that lens, it's like, oh, well, our parents were raised by mothers who couldn't support themselves unless a man was tethered to this process.
100%. And furthermore, many of them were encouraged to stay in really terrible situations because what do you want to do? Start all over?
Yeah.
Especially if you had children already. Um, I had two grandmothers who, let's just say, had really tough marriages. I won't get into either of them. One of them stayed until she died. And it's only as I got older, that I'm like, financially, I can only imagine how difficult of a decision that must have been. Like, I can only imagine how trapped she must have felt. And like
Yeah.
there wasn't another option. My other grandmother kicked her husband out of the house. She was like, I'm keeping the house. I'm keeping the kids. Bye. Fuck out.
Goodbye. She Betty
And
Drapered it.
she did. And it was amazing.
I had two grandmothers who had absent partners for very different reasons. My mother's father died when my mom was 16, and her youngest brother, my uncle, and I are about 12 years apart. So whatever that would work out to be, maybe he was like 8, maybe he
Wow.
was younger. I'm not going to do the math live on air. It'll just
No.
be embarrassing. um,
We're fine.
yeah. So they had a span of children, and I don't know if it was through my grandpa's pension or my grandmother's job at the laundromat or the support of my great uncles and aunts or whatever, but for whatever reason, my grandma Peg never looked back when it came to marrying someone else. My family jokes that there was one guy who immediately came sniffing around to be like, Peg, it would be great to take you out to dinner. And she was like, why the fuck would I let you? And she never looked back. And I think it's because at the end of the day, my grandma Peg liked doing things her way and only her way. And if you incorporate someone else into that, they might have opinions that piss her off. So why even try? And she desperately missed my grandpa, and that whole situation was tragic. And then my other grandmother had an absent partner in my grandfather for a litany of other dramatic reasons. And they still somehow got food on the table, even when it was hard, or like my parents had homes and all of that. And um, I love my uncles and aunts, so there was clearly love in the home. But my parents were still so very scared. It was almost like it kicked in the you never want that to be you, though. Like, get
Mm-hmm.
yourself a partner, split some bills with people, have a baby so that partner likes you more. Like,
My parents were very much I mean the expectation that I was going to like grow up and get married, but there was also like go to school, finish school. You don't know what's going to happen to your partner and you don't want to be financially dependent on them in every way to where if they pass away early or leave you, then you have no means to make money.
yeah. And that was very much in my home too. More without the like, because you never know what some man will do to you rhetoric, just because, like, I think it was like a pride point on them too. Like, you will go to school and you will have a career and you will make yourself safe. But then there was also this like rhetoric in my household where it's like, why are you asking so much of that dude who takes you to dinner for free and like calls you every night? Like, do you have to be such a ball buster? Which blows my mind because all of the women in my family are ball busters. Because so I'm like, well, I learned it firsthand. I didn't learn how to be nice to partners.
It's like that drug commercial when the kid's like, "I learned it from you, dad."
Yes. You, Dad, I learned my pot usage from you. And then the
You.
dad's like, ah. And I was like, and it's not that the women in my family aren't nice to their partners, but it's also not like the women in my family won't look someone dead in the eye and go, did you really think that that was a fucking cute choice? And then that whole person's day is wrecked. I've watched it happen countless times, and it has happened to me.
You're like, true story.
True
Um,
story.
I don't come from that direct of a family on either side, but yeah, definitely my grandma that kicked her husband out, who did go on to remarry someone who didn't have children, which in the I guess that was 60s was a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, and she did have a very big strong personality and married someone who was accommodating to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you eventually find them. You
Yeah.
eventually find quiet, soft partners
Yeah.
who
And
will,
I will say for the record, my papa was like one of my favorite people I've ever
yeah,
met in my entire life. So I had one great grandfather, like one wonderful grandfather is what I'm saying.
yeah. I had one that was wonderful
Yeah.
and allowed my grandmother to do whatever.
Whatever she wanted, whenever she wanted.
But it creates such a paradox in my head because obedience is such at the forefront of this too, where we were taught very young to be like good little girls are also obedient little girls, so don't question anything.
Anything.
Anything. Just be like, oh. And so I love this is a very funny way that this plays out in I think millennial women, but when someone will just look at you and go, "Where do you want to go to dinner tonight?" And you have to spiral because you're like, "Okay, what is he secretly trying to tell me that he wants for dinner?" Because we know that that's where we're ending up anyways. So it's like, let me just like sit there and be like, pizza? And then someone goes, I was really hoping tacos. Then why didn't you say that? Why did you put that emotional baggage on me?
We have totally moved through that phase in the relationship that I'm in because I'm married to a dude. And I say that because I'm bi too. But and we've definitely moved past that into like if that's where you're going, just say, hey, did you have thoughts for dinner? Because I have a couple ideas.
Yeah.
And then, do you have some ideas? I have some ideas. Let's just get to the fucking point.
Let's
Because
just let's just eat before I flip a table.
yeah. Yeah. But then I think it also leads to, and this is probably an age thing also, but when you're in your 20s even, and your friends are like, what do you want to do? I don't know what do you want to do? And like also, like do you have to go to the bathroom? Will you come to the bathroom with me? Or what should I order for dinner? Whatever you want to eat, girl.
Yeah.
It's you could just eat whatever you want to eat. You don't need me, your friend, to like give you suggestions on just eat whatever you fucking want. And like you can go to the bathroom by yourself. It's gonna be fine.
It will be a-okay. Or you will go to the bathroom and then my bladder will be like, we haven't done that for hours. And I will just follow you anyways after I've made my big stink to be like, you
Yeah.
can do it on your own. Now I have
Well,
to pee.
I mean, if we're going to the bathroom to gossip or something,
Yeah.
like I'm in. I'm
Yeah.
always in.
I'm
But if it's
always in.
just because you don't want to walk to the bathroom alone, like that's the thing that I can't handle.
Yeah. No. And I get because again, I come from a line of historically ballbuster women. I recently told another friend, I was like, listen, I go, when people immediately make me the alpha and then seek out my validation because they want me on their side, I go, it makes me meaner. I know that they think that it's going to make me their ally and I'm always going to be in their corner or whatever. But if you have to constantly ask me, was this okay? Did you like that? Were you okay with lunch? Did you have a good time? Did we have a good time? Did you like the concert? Then all of a sudden I'm meaner. I'm like, yes. And now I never want to go anywhere with you again.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. I was in a very short-lived relationship with and this is an old story. With someone who was like a friend, but then we were trying to like take the friendship to the next level and it didn't work. And I realized it was because it was very much like, well, what do you want to do? I mean, whatever you want to do, it's fine. Whatever you want to do. Like, well, what do you want to eat? Whatever you want to eat. And I was like, I can't do this for a month.
No, it's exhausting.
Like I'm done. My immediate answer is no.
Yeah. And for those reasons I'm out. And I think what also ends up happening is that this princess complex is so limiting for what our story and our future could be. I talked about it a little bit on the turns out I do have religious trauma episode with my friend Elizabeth, who was going to talk about like Southern baptism. And then I was like, but have you ever tried being a Catholic? And then we just like complained about God for an hour. And
That sounds nice.
yeah, I mean, it was very freeing. And I told her at the end of the episode, I go, I really thought that I was going to be very, very quiet because I didn't think I had ever committed to church enough to have problems. And she was like, well, look at where you are now. And so I talked about how limiting it is to grow up with a princess purity complex where it's like not only are we supposed to be laying in wait for a guy to make out with us while we're sleeping, but we're also supposed to like hold on to this purity about it and only be waiting for him. And it has to be a very heteronormative him So like I didn't even have like a fun experimental phase in college. And now I'm so exhausted by the ideas of men to be the like idea of men to begin with, where it's like someone asked me yesterday if I identified as bi, and I go, I've been using the term pansexual because I like it better,
Yeah.
because for me it is a mental and emotional connection and not actually
Hmm.
like what's in your pants or what you look like. And they were like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And I was like, but I've also only dated men because I think somewhere in my mind it was written that that was the only option for me.
I can absolutely relate to that as somebody who came out at 39.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, it absolutely wasn't an option. And it wasn't an option for something that I should have been okay with, is the direct impression that I got
Yeah.
from growing up. So I can absolutely agree with that. And it's, I mean, going back to, and also I'm not like, I'm not going to be one of those gatekeepers with the terminology. I feel strongly that everyone should use the terms that they feel
Mm-hmm.
most agreeable to. And when I say bi, it's not a using it in the two sense. It's the either, you know, like men only or not. And it's more the or not
Oh,
situation.
no, I
Um,
like that definition.
yeah. If you if anybody is listening to this and wants to learn more, I highly suggest the bisexual adults subreddit. It is fantastic and the community is very, very lovely. Um anyway, little plug there. But going back to the historical context, like we couldn't have options because again, until the 1960s, what would two women do? Just have money under the mattress?
Yeah, I
Like
think that's what they did.
and also like the what's even crazier to me, like, okay, we could own property in 1848, but how the fuck were we supposed to save that money to get the property? Like
Yeah.
it was just supposed to be like, just loosen that floorboard, bitch. Figure it out. Like the fuck? That's insane.
Right. I don't think that people understand like the secret subtext of laws where it's like women were allowed to own property in 1868, but it was literally only if their father never sired a son. So like it had to go to someone. So it went to a daughter or a widow. And
You
that's
can't see
it.
my face. I just it's deadpan because I've just enraged. So yeah, we haven't had options, and so all these things that we want for ourselves and for the future generations of women, we in our generation right now do need to make a concerted effort to not only teach the next generation what is possible, but again, that like you don't need to have your relationship status as the foundation of your self-worth.
Right. Yeah.
Like, not only do you not need to survive, but you really, really shouldn't for your fucking mental health.
Well, and I don't know. I'm a nerd when it comes to fairy tales and folklore and mythology to begin with. I think what people are miss when they're reading those stories was, well, number one, the princes get two lines because they're boring, and it's like the heroine's friends who actually do the most work in helping build her up to the point where she can get to be a princess, like it's seven dwarves or it's
It's
a
a bunch of
fish.
mice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fish.
It's
It's
a
a fish and
fish.
a seagull.
Yeah, they're doing the work. This guy just shows up and smiles and is like, I noticed that you have legs now, but I do not remember your name.
She's like, so I should be with him, right? I should
Right.
just leave everything I've known behind. I should just be with him because he's hot and like maybe he likes me.
Yeah. And then immediately he hears some other bitch and he's like, oh, maybe I marry her. And it's like, oh, I don't know what to do now. I gave up my fins and my culture and my country
My voice.
and my voice and my
Now I'm gonna
voice.
go live with a witch.
Yeah.
So my bad. I guess that was a hasty decision.
Right. And I'm like, and also, because Jules and I talk about it a lot on Still Comfy, if you watch any female driven movie from the 90s, like a boy might be in it. He usually just causes more problems, but it's literally just about like meet really good women in your life, because if you have really good women in your life, it's okay no matter what happens, because someone will know how to get you out of it.
That's completely accurate,
Yeah.
and I'm here for it because it's an amazing lesson that we all need in our lives.
Yeah, so when people come to me and they're like, "Oh, Natalie, you've been so single for so long and doing everything on your own for so long," I really just go, I'm like, "Well, that's not really the story." I go, because the last time I had the flu, I asked the man that I was sleeping with if he thought I should spend $30 to get a smoothie delivered to me or dehydrate. And he didn't think at all how to intervene with that, because it might mean that he cared too much about me. And then my friend Jessie had worked a nanny job, probably with sick children, or the parents worked late or something. I don't know. All I know is that she keyed into my house at 11 p.m. that night, yelled, "Do not wake up. It is just me. Where is your cat?" Made sure my cat was fed. And when I woke up, there was a bouquet of flowers, there was ginger ale, and everything that you could ever put in your body when you have the flu that might actually stay down, with like a note that said, "You will not dehydrate and die on my watch." Like, take care of yourself and lay on the couch and make sure that all of this is in an arm's reach of you.
That's what I'm fucking talking
That's
about.
what I'm fucking talking about.
That is the energy. Also, your friend deserves an award, and that is the energy that we need in our lives, and that's the energy that we need to like give to the next generation. Like this is what you need to strive for, to be that for someone else, and to know that you have people in your corner.
Yeah. And I think also and I think this narrative is also harmful for men too, because it gives them a very skewed vision of what it means to take care of us. And that only means monetarily, or like with things. So then when it comes to the emotional or the mental or the true support of it all, number one, if they haven't figured out in their little tiny hearts how they feel about you, they flip out. Like that's what happened with that ex. He was like, "Oh, like Natalie and I have gotten naked a couple of times, but like, I don't know, I haven't like told her I like her or I love her or like any of it. But like, also we were friends. I mean, we were like peripheral friends before we got naked. Am I the person who's supposed to bring her a smoothie? That feels inconvenient and almost like a declaration of love for me from me."
Can't do it. Guess you have to die.
Right. I guess Natalie will dehydrate and die. And then I didn't even feel like I could ask him, like, if I place the order, will you go pick up the smoothie? Like, will you
Yeah.
go pick up said smoothie? Because then I'm like, well, I don't want him to feel like I like him. Like, you have to play all of these games. So it also completely wipes out the, like, chance for men to be there for you emotionally.
Yeah. And I know that this is not what this episode is about, but I will say that it is not that men are not fed their own bullshit sandwich,
Right.
because they are. It's just a whole different sandwich of bullshit.
Yeah. A lot of the men in my life have, that I have dated, I do have a podcast about this. Eventually, when they do break up with me, it is some sort of the same sentence that is, "I don't know, it just felt like you didn't need me. It felt like you had so much. Where do I put myself in this?"
But as somebody who is a adult, you have to take care of yourself. Otherwise, you would be on the street, no?
Right. Or else I
Like,
die. I don't know.
yeah. So you can't just come in for a month and like, I need you. I mean, what? It's
Well, and then
wild.
it's such a double standard too, because if I do go full damsel, if I try to like Megara from Hercules it and be like, "Oh, I have weak ankles," then they're like, "Oh, this needy bitch over here is always blowing up my phone."
Yeah,
I
it
have a
really
text
is.
I have a messenger conversation that I ended up looking at 10 years after it had ended for context for an episode. And it literally goes from you're the most important person in my life. I cannot wait to buy this house and then for you to graduate and then for you to live in this house. And then like we get a puppy and like I'll get a puppy and I'll train that puppy. So you like the puppy when it gets here and you'll never have to like buy groceries ever. I wasn't even dating this man. You'll never have to buy groceries ever. And if you do, like make sure to pick yourself up flowers to whatever. To then me sleeping with this man and him being like, do you have to talk to me all of the time? Like, that's a text message. And I'm like, what happened to buying me a house? Where's my house?
You cross that line of needing too much.
Yeah.
It's a fine line. It's invisible, actually. And it's more like a tripwire.
And my mother was so insanely happy when I started sleeping with that man. She was like, oh, finally, after 6 years of you pining and doing everything right, he finally got tricked just enough to do it. And now he will do all of the things that they do in the storybooks. And I'm like, no, Mom, he's just going to text me every day. Do you have to talk to me every day? That's what's going to happen. And then it's going to be followed up with, where are my nudes? Like, that's romance, Mom. I don't know what to tell you.
So sorry.
Yeah.
I started my last relationship before cell phone cameras really were a thing. And so I have nothing with the apps. I have nothing with the nudes. I only hear the stories and they're all fucking terrible.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And don't get it twisted, tolerators. I am independent and I am strong, but I have sent nudes. And then I have also told myself that I enjoyed sending those nudes.
What was I telling myself? There's a common theme. I'm terrified if this relationship doesn't work out, I will have to enroll in some sort of class about the apps. I don't know.
About the apps?
It's
honestly,
it's the whole thing.
I check my apps once a week because they're more frustrating than they are helpful. It's turned dating into Amazon. Sometimes you put people in your cart and sometimes you purchase them. Like,
yeah. Your apps are like my personal inbox. I'm like, oh, it's just filled with junk. I can't even. Maybe I'll check it on Sundays.
Jules, to try to be a very supportive friend, asked me if I was ever worried that my nudes were going to be leaked ever, now that I am, quote unquote, a public figure. And I said, well, number one, do you think I put my face in those nudes? Those could be anyone's boobs. Number two, I go, the majority of the nudes were sent on like the very first camera phones ever. So if some man has taken my boobs in a very raggedy like Lane Bryant bra and saved them and transferred them to 15 different technologies, that's the biggest compliment I've ever been dealt.
Yeah. Send them around.
Send them, please do. Please.
Sounds like they're something worth seeing.
Right. Please give me my Kim K scandal. Please.
Also, the picture will be, you can't see my fingers,
right.
But it's like a 1 inch by 1 inch.
Like, oh, my best friend and I had a good 25 minutes like laughing about like what those nudes would even look like on like an iPhone.
It's just it's just so pixelated. They're
yeah.
like, huh. Guess you'll get yours now, Natalie. You're like, what is this? Is this one of those like catch like tests where it's like, find the streetlight, you know?
Right. It's like, ha, Natalie, have another podcast. Here are your mishy-mashy, like, Picasso boobs.
That'll show her.
I'm going to send them to TMZ. Please do. I would love to see what TMZ is going to do with those.
They're like, sir, this pixel number it's just 10? Is that right? I can't, there's nothing we can do with this.
Sir, I think I see a freckle. I'm not sure.
No, that's a nipple. Is it?
Is it? It's confusing. You know what?
Circle back when you have more pixels, please.
But yeah, like, it's one of those things. My friend Caitlin made a good point during our single episode. Like, are we single and thriving, or are we just some days single and some days thriving? That one of the tools of the patriarchy too, and it plays into this princess complex, is I call it the you get what you get and you don't throw a fit complex. Like, I feel like that's what my mother told me every time I was about to break up with someone. She'd be like, but why? he bought you Skittles that one time when you were sad. I'm like, oh, that's right. You
That's
get
the
what you
bar.
get and you don't throw a fit.
It kind of reminds me of the, but I didn't want to be rude
Yeah.
situation that women fall into where, you know, they end up like kidnapped and stuff. Or just the bar for treatment is so low that we're just, if we're not dead in a ditch, we're like, you know what? It's fine.
You know what? It was
It's
an
fine.
okay cup of coffee. It was like,
So marriage, I guess.
I guess I finally caught one. And also the system sets it up to be a failure if you never got that ring. And
Oh, oh, but moreover, and I know I'm totally interrupting, so I apologize, but moreover, if you do have a successful relationship and that relationship lasts 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, whenever it ends, people are like, oh, failed marriage.
uh,
It failed. I'm like, can we stop thinking about relationships as like either it's until I'm dead or a failure?
right.
Can we start thinking about this as a chapter?
I have another really great friend, and I swear it's because she's from Germany and she's not from this fucked up country. Not that Germany didn't have its own issues. But she said one time, she's like, maybe a marriage lasts a lifetime and maybe a marriage lasts 5 years, but I hope for those 5 years we were happy until we weren't. And I was like, that should be it.
There's this trend that I read recently where instead of like till death do you part, people are saying in the vows like for as long as our love lasts. And some people are like, oh, I heard that at a wedding and it's so cringe. And other people are like, I think that that is fucking beautiful and that is what I'm taking. I'm not expecting this to like definitely span till I die.
Well, and I also, because, sometimes friends love to get into other friends' business and like make it their job to save the friend from the thing. I love to tell people, like, it'll be the thing until the thing no longer makes sense to the person living the thing. So, like, where's that vow? Like, until this no longer makes sense for
Yeah.
either one of us.
Until, you know what, we're going to do it right now and it's going to be good. And then we'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
that's more realistic.
And it does get trickier with children or pets or like shared property or whatever, but all of those things can also be worked out with some clear communication.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I also feel like because divorce is this other just like really toxic process and child support and all of it. And I just feel like that maybe people would be kinder during the act of divorce if we stopped the till death do us part bullshit. Like, oh, so now I'm just supposed to pay you for this kid that we had when you didn't even want to live with me forever? Yes.
Yeah. Because it's a living human that
Yeah.
we both agreed to have.
Yeah.
That's why.
That's why.
That's why. Yeah. Divorce, I was listening to, it's in this group that I'm in, and it's like a group about money mindset, but they had their monthly call on divorce recently and just like what that brings up for people with money mindset. And it was just so um it was really interesting, but people are also sharing like so much so raw and honestly that it was really beautiful because I think that this is the type of stuff that there are a lot of stories that we end up telling ourselves about
Mm-hmm.
that sort of process and just relationships ending in general. And I know I cut you off earlier. You were saying like if you
Who
manage
knows?
to like get the ring.
Oh, if you manage to get the ring, I think it was the same point that then it's not like because they like to tell you that the story stops, but the story doesn't stop because then you're told, did he hit you that hard? Like, what did you say right before that though? Like,
What were you wearing?
what were you wearing?
Were you a little mouthy?
Yeah, are the kids annoying? Have you taught those kids how to be good when dad comes home? Like, so he wants to be home?
Yeah, like the yeah, that's ugh.
Yeah.
I I really do think it is a travesty that we are taught like and then happily ever after. Like
Yeah.
that phrase is the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard in my life because it should say and then endless compromise.
Yeah. And then just like endless figuring it out as we go. Like,
Then endless working on communication.
yeah,
That I
endless check-ins.
hope you like learning about communication styles because you're
Yeah,
going to be doing it as long as this happens
forever.
forever.
And I think the biggest piece of bullshit is they teach us that it's a passive process. Like, we're literally supposed to fall asleep and then some moron will find us in the woods. Like, I fell asleep in the woods and Edward picked me up because he knew I was sad and he knew I could love him through the vampirism.
And then he kissed me. So
Yeah.
thank God he found me.
Yeah. And but they also sell us that, so in your mind you're like, this isn't even up to me. It's up to destiny and God and fate and a moron and his wood expertise. But then what you're also handed with is, but it's also your responsibility to be desirable. And then after you were desirable enough to get the ring, it's your responsibility to do all of the emotional and mental lifting because he has to work all day
And like the
and stay thin. You have to stay thin too, no matter how many babies you have.
and that's a whole other side of what we're sold. And it's not to say that I don't think that there's a place for like staying at home and being a stay at home wife or mother. If that's your choice, it's amazing, but I don't think it's serving us to keep teaching our generations that that is like the role that we go into.
Yeah. I also have friends who actively work who still get the "but I work so hard today" rhetoric from their partners.
Since I don't have children, I feel like I can't really comment on any of that, but I will say that I hear that a lot too.
Yeah. And it's just like one of those things where it's like, what did you think I did all day?
Sat at my office eating bonbons? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this amazing book called Drop the Ball by Tiffany Dufu that I highly recommend to any woman ever. But it's specifically, I mean, she specifically talks about motherhood, but I think it can be taken in context of anyone who just happens to be in, I mean, just really like, I'm just going to say any woman.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all about how historically we have taken on, the role of what's going on at home. And as things changed and we entered the workforce more, that those roles didn't necessarily keep up with that adjustment. And what we need to do communication wise and also emotionally to lighten the load for ourselves and communicate that with our partners and make the change that we want to see in the world so that we can get half of that workload off
Yeah.
our freaking plates, and just learning to not only delegate but also let go, because I think we've also been there's stuff in society where it's like, well, no one's going to do it the way I'm going to do it, so I guess I should just do it.
Yeah.
And that mentality. But if we just know that it's not going to get done the same way, and that's fine, because guess what? We're not going to have to do it. Just let it go. Just let it go and
Just
delegate everything you can.
Yeah. And I still think that we're also put onto our shoulders a lot of responsibility where it's like, well, deprogram yourself, but then also make sure that you're talking to him about how he needs to be deprogramming as well. And it's just like, there's so much mental and emotional load that I see in my friends' marriages that is so imbalanced that I'm like, I couldn't do it. I go, I don't know. I was like, maybe they just don't get to live in my house because I couldn't be that undervalued and that stressed out in my own home.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
There are some things I hear all the time where I'm like, I am very grateful that the relationship that I'm in, I mean, we've been working on our communication for a while now.
I love that you're talking. Yeah, he's fine, but like we've been working on our communication for what feels like eons.
It's been 16 years of working on communication, which is so fun. But does it result in us like splitting household chores? Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a 50-50 situation. And, again, not a parent, so can't comment on that sort of thing. But am I grateful and have I thanked his mother multiple times for having someone who's like, well, think we need to clean the house this weekend. All right, let's write out what we want done. Let's split it in half. You take your list, I'll take my list. Let's get to it. Instead of like, this is women's work. Like
Yeah.
if someone said this is women's work to me, I would be out the fucking door.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, because I've been having this conversation with my other single friends where they're like, I can't believe that a man that we know would act that way. And I go, well, I can believe it because they've lived in the same society that we live in. So they're just silently saying it for a while until they get upset enough to like just outwardly say it. And then we're shocked. And it's like, well, it's because they also have all of these codes written in their head. So they just get also confused, but the confusion is more violent and volatile sometimes. So they're just like, well, I thought that the whole reason you would make dinner is to make me happy. Oh.
What?
Okay.
I thought it was to feed myself.
Right. I thought it was because, I don't know, I wasn't going to make dinner because I wanted to have a caramel apple as my dinner. And I have undiagnosed ADHD, so I feel like that's my right as a human who won't be diagnosed.
You know what? It's spooky season. You eat that caramel apple.
Exactly.
Just get some protein in there to just balance out the
peanuts. There's
sugar.
peanuts on the.
Oh, there you go. It's fine.
Carly, this has been delightful.
We have veered off wildly, but you know what? I wouldn't want it any other way.
No. If people are coming to all the men I've tolerated before because we stay on topic, number one, if we stayed on topic, do you know how heavy the hour would be? What are you asking for?
You don't really want that.
Right. But we have two traditions onto all the men I've tolerated before on how we end the podcast. We have to reflect and then we have to move forward in joy. So if you had one sum up, like sentence, thesis, lesson, sentence that you would give to people about this topic of the princess complex, what would you want to pass on to the people listening so they can pass it on?
I would say if you know young women, do what you can to teach them not so much like you're so beautiful, you're so pretty, and grooming them to be a bride to be, but more to be a strong young woman who not only knows that she can do anything she sets her mind to and she deserves to be paid equally for it, but also that her greatest strength will be the relationship that she has within herself and the love that she gives to others in friendship and otherwise.
Yeah. One of the big things I love to scream on this podcast is like, hey, you people who talk to children, watch what you say to those kids. And I don't mean curse words. It's funny when kids curse. It's not funny when kids say misogynistic things on accident.
Yeah, when kids are fucking racist.
Right. That's not funny.
That's not funny.
But when a kid screams fuck because a ball hit them, that makes my day. Like
100%.
100%. I think I would pass on to everyone this idea of, I mean, it was watch what you say to kids. And then I feel like I had something smarter, but then I thought about kids cursing. It was feel free to ask the women who you think are like making moves and taking charge and like going against the grain and our counterculture why they made the decisions that they made. Because a lot of the time it was a well thought out, like reasonable thing that they built their life around. It isn't always like, oh, that poor baby's still single. She must be so sad and lonely and have no love in her life and things must be so hard. Actually ask people what's going on in their lives. Don't just assume.
Yeah. Don't just throw them a pity party in your head.
Yeah. If you had to make a manifestation to send out into the universe about what's going to happen next for our culture and our collective energy, what would you hope?
I would hope that people are able to harness self-love and acceptance, turn that into joy, and radiate that out into the world around them.
That's beautiful. That should be a painting.
Buy good paint. We'll call Jules.
I think my manifestation would be that then once that joy leaves them, their families and the people who are closest and around them receive that. And that's how we start making waves, is we actually start thinking about what's actually bringing other people joy
Mm.
and making it our joy and everyone else's joy. All right, well, tolerators, you know that this whole podcast is just a ploy for me to trap people to talk to me on a phone call and then be my friends. So, Carly, thanks for being tricked.
Thank you for tricking me.
I I was so excited that you agreed to this because I'm like, oh, because we're always in a group when we get to be on phone calls together, which is fine.
Oh,
I
that's
love
true. Yeah.
people, but I'm like, oh, it'll be nice to get to just talk to Carly one on one and get to be whatever we want to talk about for content, because that's how I socialize.
Everything is content. Everything
Everything
is
is content.
Don't forget to film it. Don't forget to film it.
Make sure that everyone knows how they can connect with you on the interwebs.
When I'm not ranting about the Princess Complex, I'm talking about home organization tips. And you can follow me at Tidy Revival on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and we're on Pinterest if you want some inspo there.
I recently just told someone who thought that a recipe of theirs was really spectacular. I was like, we're all on Pinterest. I was like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And tolerators, you know where to find us. It's Instagram at Men I've Tolerated Pod, and my personal one, Natalie K124. Through those handles, you can find the Patreon, the TikToks, the YouTubes, the all of it. Still comfy merch. This is probably around March or April. March. This is when it is. March or April, but don't worry, I've been picking 2 holiday specific t-shirts that I really enjoyed and made me giggle the most to keep in the merch store. So if you want to remind people that you would be grateful if only we had reproductive rights, it's probably on a t-shirt in the merch store. And
Woo!
that can be a year-round t-shirt, even if there is a turkey on it.
Perfect. Love it.
And,
Thank you.
and remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything you're tolerating, including watching Sleeping Beauty and having to explain to children why it's inappropriate for a man to kiss you in a castle and then for you to build your life around that man. Smiles are for joy. Hi, everyone. Thank you for checking out this week's episode. I wanted to jump on and offer a small reminder of the ways that you can connect with us. The first way is our socials. So we are Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram and Natalie K124 on TikTok, my personal Instagram. And you can find us on YouTube and Pinterest under To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. The second way is by becoming a Patreon member. We are well on our way to our 25 member Patreon, where we are going to unlock bonus perks to being a patron member. Shout out to all of our existing patrons. As an independently ran and funded podcast, your support means everything. Another way that you can connect with us is making sure to subscribe and leave comments wherever you can so we can start reading reviews on each podcast episode. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to check out the merch store, and we will see you next week.